What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Bond's Apartment YouTube video. I, of course, am Luke, Bond's Apartment. Wanted to do a little video about seeing No Time to Die for the first time at a press screening. I was lucky enough to attend a press screening here in Michigan on the 28th of September. Saw it a little early with a very select few people throughout the country and the world. And I wanted to have somebody come on who is the curator of my life and all the great things in it. And the person who made this all possible, I wanted to bring them on. So here they are, Mr. David Zaritsky.
Hello, how are you?
How are you? Dream Weaver. How are you, sir?
Yeah, first of all, all these titles, curator, dreamweaver, I can't live up to any of those.
You know what, though? I did see Godfather is catching on. I started that shit, and I saw somebody comment on a YouTube video or something, and I was like, look what's happening. So Godfather,
There's
it might
nothing
be.
more maniacal than being called the Godfather. Like everybody's going to have a horse in their bed. But
Right.
no, this is fun. I'm so glad you asked me onto this because you caught me in between travels, which is really good. But this I wanted to actually hear about your time too. You and I were chatting, and we're like, we should record this because other people may be interested in like what the day was like.
Right. And in fairness, you had the wherewithal to kind of just say, hold on, let's not even talk about it and let's make it organic and natural. So, we could share because I want to hear about London. You and I haven't even chatted about London. So both of these experiences that took place simultaneously, which was awesome, you and I haven't shared either experience out with each other. So
no,
I'm excited to hear.
Fresh and raw for everybody. But this is what we're about to talk about has never been done before. And it did take me by surprise. This wasn't months in the making, but essentially just to kind of tell everybody about it in a nutshell, when I found out that I was going to the London premiere around the same time, when I got the tickets, I was contacted by United Artists Releasing, UAR, who really do handle a lot of the online promotion in the United States. So you've got MGM and Universal internationally, you got UAR really handles and focuses United States. And they were, I can't even tell you how fantastic they've been. I've never seen anything like this. As much as we, for many years, have griped about, the fans being ignored or, where's the fan events? They came out of the woodwork. They engaged. They were communicative. They were human. They were funny. I would speak to somebody at UAR and, I sent them even a goodie bag because they've just been so good to me. And they, at one point, said to me, we're going to do something pretty wild. And we are just targeting a handful of Bond content creators like yourself to target other people because this was so amazing they did this. We don't know all of the other content creators out there that really should see the movie literally at the same time,
right? Simultaneously,
that the people on the red carpet are going to see it. So it was a simulcast, if you will, across the world. And without exaggeration, there were 57 cities across the world that they were going to engage. So a few of us, a few Davids type individuals like myself, started targeting people. What I did was I took it very seriously. And I said this to them. I said, look, I'm going to reach out to content creators that I think, number one, would appreciate this. They're not entitled people. They would see this as a gift. They would really be appreciative. But more importantly, they would talk about it. Let's be frank. I mean, this is a transactional thing where, they want content creators to really talk about it, good and bad, by the way, whatever you feel about the film. No news is bad news to them. So I put a list together. It was not a huge list. It was not an exhaustive list. I put a list together. And I would say out of all the people I put on there, 97% were accepted by UAR. And it was pretty interesting process. They had to go through the names. They had to communicate, as they had to send an email. They had to find your closest city. They had to get you an invitation. You have to be vaccinated. Like there was things you had to go through. And then people like you were able to see the film. And I remember
Mhm.
telling you about it, and you went bonkers when you
Oh
found out,
yeah.
didn't you?
I couldn't believe it, you know, and the thing is it was funny because you sent me a text and said, "Hey, can you chat? Nothing bad."
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
you
was
have
like,
to say that.
okay, usually that means it's something bad. Not that David's ever had anything bad to say, but you know, in past experiences, it's usually like, hey, come to the principal's office, nothing bad.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, and not because of where the news came from, because as I've said multiple times, you've been unbelievably helpful and gracious with me. But it was the last thing I expected to hear, just because, like you said, it's very unheard of, unprecedented move by
Yeah.
UAR and team. So, you know, it was not even remotely on my radar of something. So at that point, when you called me, it was probably a week out, I'd say.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, the soonest it looks like I can see it is the 6th, which is still 2 days early. But yeah, I mean, hell of a call to get, and the experience was incredible. You and I were a little worried at first, thought I might have to do a little traveling. Didn't even have to do that. You know, it went
Yes.
from potentially going to Chicago to going to a theater I've been to 20 times, 20
How
minutes
far
from
was
my
the
house.
theater from you,
20
from your
minutes.
home?
20 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. And
So
the
tell
and
me, because I want to hear, like, I haven't really heard the detail from any of the people that I targeted. I haven't heard
mhm.
really anybody recount their experience. Like, so what happens like that day you get up? Is your mind buzzing? Like, don't
Oh
leave
yeah.
out the details. I want to hear about
Yeah.
this.
So for me, it was so I'll give you the A to B story. So for
Yeah.
me, woke up, already had a full outfit picked, half Bond, half not. Can't walk out of there in full commando outfit.
Yeah.
And basically when I got there, well, I should say this. So on the way there, the tailor I go to is right around the corner. And I had just picked up that barber covert jacket. I was like, look, this is just a day full of Bond. Went in there, and they actually are very heavy into selling barber, like everything from the jackets to button downs, everything. They've got it all in there. So they were like, oh, this is so nice. And he's telling his wife, we have to order this and start stocking this. And I was like, good luck, but okay. So, and he's like, you're so lucky, this is a beautiful jacket. And I was like, I'm actually going to see the film. And he's like, oh my God, you're so lucky, blah blah blah. So I got there like an hour early, of course,
Wow.
and there was nobody in there. So I was a little taken aback, but I even beat the marketing team there. So they roll in, and they rolled in maybe 10 minutes before the movie started. They had the posters and the, like the press board, and put I was like, oh, this is actually happening. So we went in there, and yeah, maybe you guys didn't see this, but Daniel Craig popped up. Did you guys have this at your thing?
No.
So Daniel Craig popped up and delivered a little message specifically to us saying, "Hey, you guys are amongst the first people in the entire world to see this in the cinema where it's meant to be seen." It was really badass.
Are you
And
getting
he
like
almost looked
shivers at this
emotional.
point? Like,
Oh yeah,
what's
yeah,
going through your
because
head? You're sitting there.
oh,
First of
I
all, did
was
they give
losing
you
it.
popcorn? Did they give you a drink? Like, what's
Oh,
going
I
on?
got a beer. I knew I needed alcohol. I knew I
Yeah.
was going to need alcohol for many reasons. But well, we sat there. They just had like a promotional, you know, like screen grab of something. And then next thing you know, he pops up, probably right at 3 o'clock. I think it would have been here,
Right.
Eastern time. And after that, the second, because no previews, no nothing, right? So it just jumps right into, you hear that little bit of a Bond theme playing with the MGM logo flying in.
Wow.
And at that moment, yeah, it was like, this is really happening. You know what I mean? And there's for me, and this is one thing I wanted to get your take on too, with it being Daniel Craig's last film. And I grew up in the early 90s. Pierce Brosnan was my Bond. I was
Yeah.
pissed when they cast Daniel Craig as a young kid. And then the second I saw Casino Royale, my whole life changed. Truly,
Yeah.
truly, everything changed. And it was melancholy just because it was his last one.
Yeah.
Didn't matter how the film, if it was 100% of Rotten Tomatoes, and every Bond fan's dream took place in this film, it was still a somewhat somber moment for me.
Yeah.
Did you have anything similar
Oh,
when you were in
totally.
London?
Even before I saw the film, I had done a couple of news programs, and they all asked me that same question. Are you excited? And I said, honestly, it's bittersweet
Mhm.
because it's amazing. We've been waiting 6 years for this movie. and I can't wait to see the movie. But it's bitter in the fact that I really like Daniel Craig's tenure, and I've
Right.
really liked his movies, each one of them, including Spectre. I mean, there were things to
Hmm.
take away from. So that was even before I saw, any of the plot of No Time to Die. Uh, it was tough. It was like a kind of a nostalgic, like this is it. Like this is the
Yeah.
last Daniel Craig movie that we will see. By the way, was your theater packed? Was it empty?
No, so like obviously inform me, it's a press screening. So
Right.
for press and like critics and being in Michigan, there's a like the critics here are on like the local news. So they're as exposed as they could be, where obviously LA it's variety and this and that.
Yeah.
They're not actually getting real FaceTime anywhere, where the critics here, there's a segment on each channel
Hmm.
2, 4, and 7 with these people. So they're well known because a lot of them do other things on those shows,
Yeah.
sports or whatever. So they're definitely well known. So there was a few people I was looking for, and one guy in particular who's probably got the most well-known show. I didn't see him, but then I found out they had two separate rooms. The screening was going on twice.
Ah.
So I think they had some maybe a contest winner and then some critics in mind, because I did recognize a few, and then there was another room I think that was strictly press.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, but between the two rooms, I'd say no more than 25 people.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And were people like clapping at parts in yours? I mean, it's critics, so were they quiet?
They were mostly quiet, but and for me, it's like when I saw a couple walk in, I moved because I was like, I don't need to hear what they have to say mid-film. Not disrespectfully, but it's like if I'm sitting there and even if the
Yeah.
movie sucked and they were like, this movie sucks, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, no, it
Yeah.
doesn't suck. It doesn't. It's the best movie of all time. Don't ever say that. Even though I'm sitting there like, yeah, can you? But yeah, so I just kind of got in my own little bubble. And I will say this, when people left the theater, or I should say when the film ended, everybody stayed to the very, very last credit rolled.
Right.
And then when people walked out, it was just a very, kind of digestive mood.
Yeah. What was
What
the mood
the
of
mood
people? What
was,
was your mood
my
at the
mood
end?
was, I felt like I had just gotten dumped. There's no other way to say. I literally came home and told my fiance, I was like, that feeling in your gut where you just feel like everything in your world has just been shaken, not stirred.
Yeah. Oh,
That's how it was. It took me like 2 days to really process everything that I had seen.
yeah. It was similar. Like at the end of the premiere, there was again that smattering of applause, but
Hmm.
everybody kind of woke out. Listen to me. Woke, left the theater, and it was like a wake. I
Hmm.
mean, people were kind of like consoling each other.
Right.
Um, and I remember very succinctly at the end, we're in Royal Albert Hall and it's mobbed. And of
Hmm.
course, what's happening is people are recognizing me or coming up to me and saying, like, oh my gosh, we want to hear your quote. Like, what did you think about it? And I'm like, I kept saying the same thing to everybody. I just need to digest it. I just need to digest it. But I turned to my wife and I was with Calvin Dyson and Harris Thomas, who were my guests. And I turned to them and said, listen, I know we're supposed to go to the Hippodrome Casino now to party it up and to celebrate. But do you guys mind if we go back to my hotel bar and just have one drink,
Hmm.
just to sit and have a quiet moment? I needed a
Right.
quiet moment. So
Right.
we literally walked to my hotel. We each had a really good stiff drink, and then we went to the casino. But I needed that time just for quiet. Like I didn't want a million people coming up, and I didn't want to take pictures, and I didn't want to. I just
Hmm.
I just wanted to be alone for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was the same. And it's interesting you say that, because the press screening it in Michigan, I'm assuming, it's a lonely experience because there's not very many people. Obviously, it was just me. You can't bring a guest.
Yeah.
So, of course, and then when the film ended at 6 o'clock, it's rush hour in Michigan. So it took me a
Yes.
lot longer to get home. And Lorenzo, Omega Bond Watches, and Caleb from Commando Bond, the three of us jumped on a three-way call. And there wasn't a whole lot said on the call, and I just remember
Wow.
thinking, I feel like if I had seen it in London, I wouldn't be as sad. But what you just said is a little interesting, because you even said, you know, surrounded by 5,000 people, you're like, I need to get away from all of this and just be with the 3 people I came here with and
Yeah.
just stop and have it
And
be
the good
sad.
news is that once I got to the casino, I mean, there was over 100 people there from the
Mhm.
premiere, and we knew each other so well, of course.
Right.
It wasn't a sad, it was contemplative. It was kind of like, what did you think about this part? What did you think about that part? It was great because we knew that all of the people in the casino had seen the film. We could be a little
Right.
bit more overt. And that was nice. And I mean, I stayed till like 3 a.m. London time,
Mhm.
drinking with friends, which was fun. But I remember getting up the next day, and then again, it was early morning, it was quiet. It was during those quiet moments where you started to really
Yes.
contemplate, and
Yes.
the gravitas, the heaviness of what had just happened. Like, wow, they made a choice. They made
Yeah.
an extreme choice. And that's when it started to hit. But it didn't take away from the premiere. And like I assume for you, you had a heavy responsibility. And I wanted to
Mhm.
ask you about this because although you had the long drive back and you had a couple of friends you could talk to, you were amongst, I mean, literally the tiniest handful of people in the entire
Right.
United States who actually have consumed the film by now.
Mhm.
And nobody else in the United States had
Yeah.
and wouldn't for over a week. So, what was that like? Like just keeping your mouth shut?
That was one of the most difficult things I've had to do, especially, you know, since joining this, you know, Bond community. Was, you know, for me, it's the embargo dropped at 7:01 Eastern time, as you know. So
Yep.
for me, that was a half hour after leaving the theater. So I didn't have too much time to have to really be silent as far as every aspect of it. But the first thing I did was post just a picture of Daniel Craig with a few words that I wanted to say, as I told you about. But from that point, I was like, okay, you know, I know David's doing his thing and I know everybody's doing their own thing. I didn't want to be that first person to start posting, hey, I went and saw it, and then getting all these questions. And I also, you know, for me, this is the first thing I've been a part of like this. So I'm also not going to be the one like 701, hey, blah, blah, blah. You know, I don't need United Artists and everybody else thinking, oh, of course, like this guy we've never heard of. He's the first one to, you know, be doing things. Like I was just kind of like, I need a little bit of time. And then when I posted the picture of me outside of the screening, I don't think I've ever had more DMs in my life asking me, "What did you think?" But don't tell me what you thought. And I was like,
Oh,
then I was like, I
so
literally kept
did
saying,
people just want like an overall, like, I loved it, I
yeah,
hated
I
it?
I think so. I think so. Nobody asked me anything specific. Nobody said like,
Okay.
"Hey, did Q do this, or did Moneypenny say this, or is Nomi this or that?" Like
Right.
nobody said anything like that. But you know, what I told you yesterday when you and I spoke, when I walked out of the theater, the gentleman running it asked me for a comment. He whipped out his phone and he was like, "Okay, what, you know, what were your thoughts?" I was like, "On the film." And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "I have no words." I sounded like Daniel Craig. I was like, I want him in an interview. I was like, "I have literally no words." I said, "I cried." How about that? And he's like, "Me too." And he was like, "Thanks." So it's like when people were DMing me for, you know, at that point now a week straight, I just kept saying, I need to see it again. You know what I mean? And I was like, I will say this. I was like, I thought it was very good,
Yeah.
you know, and I think maybe one of the things I said was maybe it might be a little like divisive amongst the community.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
aside from that, I was like, I thought it was very good.
Yeah. And I think it's become more polarizing now because initially, I will tell you, because I had a couple more days in London after we all saw it, and everybody that I would run into almost universally was like, I don't know, that ending.
Mhm.
I don't know. That's our
Right.
Bond. It's not a typical Bond movie. I think, as including myself, as more and more people started to see it more and drink it in and go, I see the choices they made. I understand the choices they made. Even a little bit more accepting. There were still some divots,
Hmm.
on the ground that some
Right.
people couldn't get over. But I think more and more people were like, "This is a pretty damn good film."
Oh yeah.
And now I'm seeing tons of, mine comes out tomorrow, for example. I'm seeing tons of spoiler-filled reviews, that are just praising this. I mean, one of them
Yeah.
calls it a masterpiece. Joe Darlington, who's usually pretty critical about these things, I just saw his yesterday, and he
Hmm.
loved it without question.
Yeah.
Like everything about it. I'm not quite there.
Uh-huh.
I'm envious of him, but
Yep.
he
I
ranks it
think you'll
super
get
high.
there though. I think you'll get there because I think you and I are similar. And I will say, funny you bring up Joe, because after watching it, I DM'd him. I said, excellent review. I must say I'm shocked with your conclusion. And I was like, however, I'm completely on the same page. But I was very shocked. Um, yeah, for me, you and I had some conversations before the film came out, months before the film came out, about various things, sartorial items and different things, whatever the case may be. And there was a couple things swirling around the community rumor wise that you and I had kind of addressed off screen together.
Mm,
And so once I went and saw it with the going into it with it being Daniel Craig's last film, depressing as all hell by itself. And the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when Pierce Brosnan filmed Die Another Day and went to the premiere, he didn't think that was his last one. He didn't know,
no, that's true.
so that cloud hanging over it, it was a celebratory cloud. But I mean, your interview with Barbara that came out, she was like, "You're going to make me cry." This person is just meeting, and you
Yeah.
bringing up that emotional hug with her and Daniel on the last day, she's telling you, "You're going to make me cry." I mean, not only was it a cloud of him being done over it, but you could see it all over her face at every
Yeah.
event she was at, that she was in denial about it. So for me, all of that leading up to it, but then the rumors we had heard about the potential ending or endings, and then thinking, well, if this ending happens, I'm still not thrilled with it.
Yes, no, you're right. We did talk about what potentially we had heard about. There was some discussions and pure rumors swirling,
Mhm.
and one of them was almost to create a Dark Knight type ending where maybe Bond, you know, something happens, you think he's dead, and then at the end you see Mathilde and
Right.
Madeline playing in a playground or something, and then off in the distance maybe you see a hazy Bond, or maybe you see a polo shirt, and
Mhm.
typical Daniel Craig sartorial items. And you and I
Right.
were
Right.
geeking out about that,
Right.
hoping and praying that that was the case, because that would have been a phenomenal way. Plus they were breaking down the components of Daniel Craig's era from a sartorial standpoint. I mean, it would have hit for so many
Right.
different things, and also even be a little celebratory moment, as opposed to this one where you leave the movie theater like this.
Right. And for me, when you and I had kind of broken down that potential Dark Knight Rises rumor, I was thinking to myself, that's going to be it, because that's a hell of an ending. Whether I like it or not, it's the way we talked about it and the way it sounded like it may be, I was like, this has got to be it. So the whole time seeing it the first time, I was just anticipating that ending.
That
And
scene.
not, yeah, exactly. And not even to the point where I'm saying this is how it's going to end and I can't wait to see it. It was each scene, from the first time we see Safin to Matera to everything following, I just kept thinking, but this is how it's going to end. So I needed to go see it a second time. And after seeing it the second time, knowing how it ends, being
You
able to
accepted it.
compartmentalize that,
Yeah.
I really did feel it was a great film.
So I've got to tell you something in total transparency. At the premiere, when clearly he was walking up, and I'm like, oh yeah, wow, they're gonna have him like look like he's getting killed. Here it comes.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
he's walking up the ladder and he's standing there in that big epic, camera climb, and the missiles hit. When he got incinerated, I mean, when there was explosions and there was no question, I literally like leaned back in my seat and arched my back, like, hold on, how are they going to do that Dark Knight Returns
Right,
ending now?
right.
He's
I
got
was thinking
incinerated.
the
Like,
same
how
thing.
are they going to show him all of a sudden in the ocean, or maybe the bottom of the building collapsed, or like, how are they going to do this? And
Hmm.
then even when, dude, this is so me, even when Madeline is going through the tunnel and she says to her daughter, I want to talk to you about Bond, James Bond. I'm thinking like, all right, so how are they going to show an end scene?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Where's he
oh,
standing?
I know how they're going to do it. They're going to do a Marvel thing, and they're going to have a scene at the end and
Yes.
then they're going to have the James Bond return. All right. So I sat there watching all these things
Hmm.
scroll up,
Hmm.
people walking by me like it's a wake in
Yeah.
the Royal Albert Hall. And I'm thinking like, here it comes. And then all of a sudden
Yep.
I saw the James Bond returns and I'm like, oh
Oh
my
shit.
gosh, there's
This
no
is what,
Dark
yeah.
Knight return scene.
Yeah.
He's incinerated. I was
Yep.
like, I think that hit me twice then.
Yes, you said it perfectly. Then you and I were simultaneously having the exact same moment because I was one, because when the missiles hit him, he's still standing there. You know what I mean? You don't see him like, not like you would, but you don't see him even move an inch.
Nope.
I'm like, okay, he's not dead. They missed, whatever. So then this happens, and I was like, okay, here he comes, because it goes white, remember? And I was like, if that's the ending, I had this quick, and I was like, okay, now they're back in London, and
Right.
how it continues on. I was like, okay, where's he hiding? When she was coming through the tunnel, I was like, is he standing on a cliff? Is he in the trunk? Is he, you know what I mean? Is he her? All these, I was like, where is he coming from? And then it ends. Yeah, I was pretty
Dude.
depressed.
I actually thought about you, and sitting right next to Harris, because the three of us are really the ones that were talking about that hopeful, if they did
Mhm.
go down this route,
Right.
that we were hoping there would be a Dark Knight Returns moment. And all I could think about was, I did think, oh man, you're sitting somewhere like reacting like I am, like, no, you can't go backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what though? And the one thing I'll say is a lot of the comments I've received, because, one of the things I started doing is after seeing this screening, my account has just exploded with followers and likes and views
Nice.
and all kinds of stuff in the best way possible. But there's people commenting, and they were still commenting like before the film came out. Obviously it's not out in Australia and different things like that. And they're like, why would they kill Bond? Blah, blah, blah. Daniel Craig wouldn't want this. I'm like, who do you think decided on it?
Oh yeah.
The
Oh
guy that
yeah.
had the most heavy handed say of anybody aside from, I mean,
I'm
it
sure it was a
probably
part of
was
his
Barbara.
contract.
Yeah, it was probably Barbara, Michael, Daniel, then Carrie. You know what I mean? And so on from day one.
Yeah.
But the thing that I keep seeing that bothers me, and I want to see if you feel the same way, is how are they going to continue on after this? How are they going to rewrite this? Well, you don't have to. It's a new actor.
Yeah, I don't think they have to. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think that even during this run of this movie, they're going to really focus that the Daniel Craig era of films, the 5 films, is a compartment that sits within the Bond franchise, just like some of
Mhm.
the actors sit almost like compartments in there.
Right.
And so you have to take it as a 5 picture arc. You see his beginning, you see his end. Set
Right.
that aside. And when they do the new film, I think it's going to be just like, well, here's a different compartment. Here's a
Right.
different take on
Right.
James Bond. Still James Bond. We'll do the tropes and things like that. I don't think they need to go back in time. I don't think they need to do prequels.
No.
I guess
No.
it's all a prequel. But and
Right.
here's the good news. They're never going to kill him again. So
Yeah.
this will be the last time they kill James Bond, which to me,
Right.
that makes me happy. But I'm a little curious now of how long they're going to wait. Will it be 3 years? Will it be 2 years? Will it be 5 years? Like,
Hmm.
it, who knows?
Well, I have a couple questions for you, if you don't mind,
Oh, of
regarding
course.
that. So I spoke to you about this a little bit, and you know, like I said earlier in this video, the Pierce Brosnan changeover. There wasn't a cloud over the premiere. There wasn't a cloud over the filming. And even when the premiere wrapped, eventually got a phone call saying, hey, we're moving on. But when that happened for you, what first off, your experience just from changeover, from Pierce Brosnan and that time frame in between Daniel Craig was announced. How do you navigate that? How do you handle it from a fan aspect, from a content point? What do you do during that time to alleviate the giant question mark on the franchise?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably very similar to what I'm doing now. I mean, now it's a little bit of a focus on a movie, but I'll constantly go back to the clothing and to the toys and the merchandising and interviewing people, getting to know people, events.
Mhm.
None of that's going to stop. I mean, that's what I use to kind of fill in the gap as much as possible.
So the reason I ask is this for me, obviously as an adult, is the first time I've ever had to do it. And then being a
Hmm.
part of this community like we are, it's 10 times more difficult, you know, and I, of course, I've said to Lorenzo and Jake, my podcast co-hosts, that now it's time for us to really get creative and start diving into the character period. But
Yes.
for me, it's like you just said, when is the next one going to come out? Do you see them announcing at least the actor by next year?
Oh, no.
Yeah,
No. I
that's
mean,
the
I mean,
scariest
who
part.
knows, but I don't think so. First of all, next year is going to be filled with the 60th anniversary. So I
Right.
think they're going to be doing events and conventions and merchandising all around the 60th anniversary. So that's what we'll be focusing on, is the
Mhm.
25 movies in the franchise. But you're taking the right route, which is there's going to be so many people that give up. They're going to be like, oh, well,
Right.
the film premiered. Yeah, it's a couple months later. Bye.
Right.
But really, what you should be doing is digging in harder and saying,
Right.
this is what I want to give back, because we're going to have a deficit of Bond material.
Mhm. Yeah, you know, for me, it's just the I think I'm having a Daniel Craig moment here again,
I
where I'm
like
kind of
it.
just don't know
I
what to
like it.
say.
Keep it going, man.
Not difficult, you know. After seeing this, it's not difficult. But for me, I think the scariest part, truly leaving the theater that day, after being able to kind of sit, like I said, we had that three-way call.
Yeah.
Caleb's at the airport, Lorenzo's in the car, I'm in the car. You know, Lorenzo's fighting traffic, I'm fighting traffic, Caleb's running to his plane. It wasn't the longest call. Um, I think after having like an hour to myself and then
Mm.
the following couple days, I was like, okay, you know what? The scariest part is, especially with the way they ended this film, with the biggest, darkest period
Yeah.
ever. I'm thinking, okay, so how long is it going to be until there's another one? Are they going to, you know, because Daniel Craig comes in, he made them bigger and bigger and bigger and better and better and better.
Yeah.
Whether people like Spectre or whether you like Quantum, just even the way they made the films and the
Oh, yeah.
decisions they made. Are they going to continue down that path, or is it just going to be a, you know, I don't want it to be like, oh, the royal premiere, that's not a thing anymore, or the gadgets, those aren't a thing anymore. You know what
No,
I
I
mean?
think they'll
That's
still do gadgets. I could see them being more economical.
okay.
I could see them saying, instead of we're going to make a $350 million movie, we're going to make 150 million. I mean, Mission Impossible, they're expensive movies to make, but they're, like this newest one, they're filming back to back, and it's rounding out at about 125, 150 a film. They're going to make an amazing
Right.
film. I think that they can make it more plot driven. These movies, they put a lot into it money wise, and they do a lot
Mm-hmm.
of stuff for
Mm-hmm.
real. So maybe they don't do things for real as much. I don't know, but
Right.
I could see them being a little bit more economical with it. The one thing I absolutely do know, that for the next 6 months, it'll be a focus. The focus will change from this movie, to the 60th anniversary. And
Right.
for literally a good year and a half, I'm telling you right now, there is going to be a situation where we're going to be focusing backwards on all
Right.
25 films because of the 60th anniversary, especially the older ones. So we're not even going to be really curious for another
Yeah.
year and a
That's a
half,
good
like,
point.
who's the new actor. I
Right.
could see 2023, they announce a new actor, they start
Okay.
the filming, and in 2024, 2025, we get a movie. I
See you in
know.
London in 2025.
I'm going to get my ticket right now. Look, can I ask you?
Um,
Let me ask you a question.
yeah.
Because I'm sure friends and family are saying, like, oh, we saw the box office, not as much as they thought, and
Mm-hmm.
you're engaged to be married, you are going to be betrothed,
Mm-hmm.
and you're very close with her. You guys are the cutest couple in the world.
Thank
She's
you.
got
She
to be
says hi,
curious.
by the way.
Have you taken her to the movie?
So, believe it or not, I had tickets to go this past Wednesday and Thursday, and I had a very, very severe cold. You could probably hear it a little bit still.
No,
So,
not bad.
I was so bad the day her and I were supposed to go, we ended up just getting a refund on the ticket, or not a refund, like a credit.
Yeah.
So she hasn't seen it yet, but I did go the very next day with Mr. Jason Kim, who I know you got to see again in London. And he and I went and saw it. And, you know, like I said, even better. But she, it was interesting for her because I came home and just kind of hugged her and melted into her arms like a little baby girl. And she was just very curious. All of a sudden, just very, very curious. Why is he so upset? You know, and I was like, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to, because she's only seen Casino, Skyfall, and part of Spectre.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make sure she sees all of Spectre before we go. But all of a sudden, somebody who's, you know, just under maybe a casual Bond fan, like she sees him because I like him. And then after she watches him, of course, she does like them.
Yeah.
But now she's like, what the hell happened in that movie theater for him to come home so clinically depressed?
Yeah. And there's a reason I'm asking, because Danielle, like almost directly after and ever since, has said to me and to others, she felt very strongly that women and people that don't typically like Bond films will love this Bond film.
Yeah.
That it is, you know, family man Bond, that the romance is at the heart of it, love, family, all these things. He's not quite the anti-hero, assassin, misogynistic one that we all fell in love with. And she said diehard Bond fans are going to have issues. And she said, but quite frankly, this is really going to appeal to the women in the Bond fans' life, or the spouses and family members. And I think she's right. That's why I asked about.
I agree completely.
Your fiance. I think your fiance is going to love this movie.
Yeah. Well, where would you classify Danielle? Obviously, as far as, you know, she's married to the godfather of James Bond. So
Shut up.
where would you class? She can't be a casual fan. She's got to be a little higher up than that, correct?
She's
just by default.
Yeah, by default and by proxy and osmosis, maybe. But she's not a super fan. She's not fanatical, and she doesn't sit there like if there's a Bond movie on and we're clicking through. She's not going to sit there and go like, "Ooh, stop!
Everything
love this."
Stops. Yeah.
Scene.
Right.
So I think she's a fan by proxy. A good fan by proxy, meaning she knows all the lines. When I quote a Bond line, she knows them. That doesn't make her a super fan. That makes her a victim.
Yeah.
So she's a Bond fan victim. That's how I would decode her.
I think Brienne's halfway there. So as far as you know, the one question I'll have for you then, there was many rumors before this film came out about the Nomi character, and you know, you've got Naomi Harris, Lashana Lynch, Lea Seydoux, Ana de Armas. You've got 4 heavy-hitting A-list women. And people were like, is he going to take a back seat to everybody? The whole, you know, there was all this, you know, issues with what could potentially come of it. What did you think after seeing the film with those issues? And did you feel that they wrote the story and those women correctly?
Yeah, I mean, there were no issues whatsoever. There was no wokeness. I'll tell you, I'll go so far as I actually found a lot of the roles gender neutral, in the sense that, you know, when Madeline was kicking ass in the forest, shooting people, I was rooting for her. Had nothing to do with that she was a woman. Like, oh, look at that woman, she's acting like a man, or stupid things like that. I never felt like Bond was being dissed, or as some people say, simped, you know, being a simp. I thought that he got over on Nomi. I thought that he put her in her place after she tried to put him in his place, and the reconciliation of that I thought was great. If anything, I wanted actually more of that. I really liked the banter with the two of them. Paloma was phenomenal. She was like her own movie, quite frankly.
Incredible.
And just fun. It's what I go to a Bond film for, is that, you know, moment in Cuba. Quite frankly, Naomi Harris's Moneypenny didn't have much to do. She was kind of like check. But I still liked her, and I loved Q in this. So no, I didn't think there was any of that. I think that was all blown out of proportion. And quite frankly, people that were crying that were people that haven't even seen the film.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I saw was people were upset that he was on the back of a scooter. And I was like, once you see the film, it's not his friggin' scooter. You know what I mean? That's not being woke. That's saying somebody pulls up, says, hey, do you need a ride? And the old Bond would be like, yeah, move your ass. That's not how life works.
So is it that way to those people in Thunderball when Fiona Volpe picks up Bond, and, you know, when he's hitchhiking and takes him for a ride? I mean, the
Right.
stupidity of it. It's
Oh yeah.
ridiculous. They're going to cry about
So
anything.
yeah, and that's another reason I'm truly overall, like you said, with the glowing reviews, I do like the film, but I am actually still kind of surprised with just how well the reviews are. I
Yeah.
really am. But another quick question: the um, Gemma Arterton role in Quantum of Solace had recently come up as her getting ridiculed for taking that role because of the lack of lines, the lack of,
Right.
she comes in, she just sleeps with them for basically no reason, and then dies. The Paloma role was compared to that because of how small it is. But do you feel this is kind of a Gemma Arterton role that they got completely right this time, as
Oh,
far as how
absolutely.
quick it
That's a
was?
great
But
way to put it. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a really good way to put it. They got it right this time. I mean,
right,
I haven't really encountered, I've encountered one or two, but I haven't encountered a lot of people who walked away and go, I love the film, except for the Cuba scene. Yeah, that
right,
Paloma. Everybody was just like, yes, this was
yeah.
so cool. And no, I think they dished it out correctly.
So as far as she goes, and I spoke with Mel about this in length, James Burb.
Oh,
So with her character, when you first meet her, she's kind of like playing dumb. Oh, it's my first job. I've only been training 3 weeks. And then she just beats the shit out of everybody and completely holds her own. Do you feel that there was like a sleight of hand she was trying to play? Or do you feel that her character, I kind of kept telling people I felt like maybe she developed a little bit of a backstory, almost like
hmm,
the whole like dressing to the nines and being like in the job is strange to her, but the
yeah.
beating the shit out of people she's probably done her whole life because she had to. Do you kind of get those vibes with her as well?
I,
Because
I do. I haven't, wow, I think you thought about it more than I have, but it's still
people have asked
very
me that question
intriguing.
a
Yeah.
lot, David,
Yeah,
multiple times.
clearly. What you have nothing better to do?
I was just like, I mean, I don't know why she acted like, and they're like, the way she was drinking her drink, like she's so timid. And I just kind of said, you know what? After seeing it a second time, I think what it was maybe she grew up like on the streets in Cuba and she was always fending for herself. So
Wow.
that she can do. But
You're
the
writing a
dressing
new
up like
movie,
that is, you know what
The
I'm
Paloma
saying?
Stories.
Well, Michael just called me and asked me to do it. So I got it. I'm so damn busy, David. I
He's so
just got so much.
generous, that guy.
He's a nice guy. So my last question for you, just to touch back on the hiatus,
Sure.
the question mark. The second you finish this movie, you got home from London, you're finally able to kind of digest, because I know you've been traveling nonstop. So you've been home for a few days.
Right.
Do you find yourself naturally gravitating towards the very beginning? Do you want to start watching Dr. No, or do you want to start
Oh,
observing Timothy Dalton more, or are you still focusing on what you've seen and moving forward, or does it naturally bring you back to the beginning?
that is a fantastic question. That is really unique. No, I haven't been brought back, probably because I'm still in it. So, I mean, after
Mhm.
London, there was 2 days rest, and then I was off to Los Angeles
Yep.
doing events around this movie. Then I came back, and I have a couple days rest, and people will probably already know this by the time you have this come out, but off to Jamaica, for 5 days, and also talking about the movie in Jamaica and things like that.
Right.
So the movie's still deeply in my mind. What I'm so looking forward to, Luke, because I called you proactively and I was like, I just want to talk to my friends. Like,
Mhm.
honestly, I'm just looking forward to like sitting back and taking it all in. I have stacks of magazines downstairs. I have the
Yep.
program from the premiere I haven't even cracked open. I've got the making of book that came in yesterday. I haven't really even talked to my friends like Kyle about what he thought of the film. Like, what I'm
Mhm.
looking to do is for it to slow down and just be able to sit back and relax and let it wash over me.
Embrace it all.
Then
Yeah.
I'm probably going to go back to the other films, but I haven't even detoxed on this one with my buds.
Yeah. That's what you said when we spoke on the phone. And obviously, they've got you running ragged. The best situation to be in, but also probably exhausting as hell. But
It's not exhausting at all. I have to tell you,
good.
Danielle's like, you're
Adrenaline.
not a human being, but I know why, because I know this celebration is going to end, and they've
Mhm.
been so good and so supportive and allowed me to do what I do without being handcuffed, and they've been keeping me at arm's length with all my content. I've never felt this free and giddy about something like this, and it's going to end. I mean, it's going to end abruptly, and then we're not going to have anything for 3 years. So
Right.
I'll sleep when it ends.
Right. Brienne literally asked me last night when I told her you and I were doing this. She goes, how does he have time for his actual job? I was like, he owns it. That's how he has time for it. He's the godfather of everything.
Yeah.
But I was like, honestly, I don't know. But if anybody could do it, it's you.
I have an amazing team of people. And quite frankly, it's a company who 100% knows how important this is to me, and was to me, and is to me. And so, you know, I've call it a sabbatical, call it whatever you want. They know that for 3.5 weeks, it was going to be about Bond. And, you know, I found some time here and there to do some work.
Well, I've actually seen some things. I don't know if it's Instagram or YouTube or how I would have seen it, but they're from what I've seen, very supportive of your Bond, your love for Bond. I've seen like parties thrown and cakes and all kinds of stuff Bond themed. So last question for you, truly.
You said that other one was the last question.
Truly, but I got to touch on the London and the LA. Of all the London, LA things you've done so far, pre-Jamaica, obviously coming up next, but everything you've done so far, was there a high point? One moment in particular, if you had to choose one?
Yes. You know, obviously being with my friends was great. There were some celebrity moments. My highlight was when they combined. So I spent an entire afternoon with David Williams, who took Danielle and I to Claridge's high tea, and we talked, and I connected with him and some of his friends. And then we went to the Greg Williams private event with his photography, and David Williams and Greg are really close friends. So I got to meet him, and but the best part was at one point, all of a sudden, who walks over, who's best friends with David Williams, is David Arnold. And so it was David Williams, David Arnold, and David Zaritsky sitting together at dinner. And who was I able to invite? Calvin Dyson and Peter Brooker. And you know, they grew up with David Williams. And then here comes David Arnold. And David Arnold sat there at dinner, so happy to talk about James Bond and his work. He wasn't one of these like, these fanboys are going to talk to me. He was talking about it. He talked about the movie. He talked about every aspect. He talked about stories. My wife sat next to him. She loved talking to David Arnold. So it's all these fascinating people eating food and not being celebrities, and just being people and celebrating. That was my highlight.
That's incredible. Did he mention the score at all?
Yeah, absolutely. He liked the score.
Yeah, to me, it's the closest. To me, it's either number 1 or number 2 next to Casino Royale.
It's really good. And Zimmer did a great job, I think. I actually like the Zimmer parts the best. Yeah.
I mean, the last score piece in the film, I can't even listen to. And we'll leave it at that.
It's very sad.
David, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm glad to catch up with you as always. Thank you for being so gracious, and thank you for getting many into that screening. It's you know, like you said, you and I haven't really had a chance to catch up too much. It's changed a lot about my account and everything. So I can't thank you enough.
Well, listen, I have a philosophy that I think you go by as well. It's, what's the point of living if you can't feel alive? The whole thing that I rip from is that if you can't share the joy of these moments, what's the point? I mean, nobody's going to win being a miser and holding on to them. So the fact that we could share in that screening with so many of our friends is magical, absolutely magical.
Yeah. Well, this is, like I said, thank you for coming on. That was 2 Pierce Brosnan movie quotes for you from David in about 15 seconds. Once again, Luke from the Bond Experience. Oh, geez. Luke from Bond's Apartment. David from the Bond Experience.
I work alone, baby. I work alone.
He works alone. Thank you guys for coming. We'll catch you on the next one.